book 8, which is How to Break a Dragon's Heart. And I think, apart from the last one, that this is actually my favourite of all the books. I really like this one because this is the book where you suddenly realise the whole story, nothing has been an accident. Because hiccup is another name for an accident, isn't it? And that isn't really an accident either, that's his name, as you will find out. So I really love this one. It's where, yeah, well, you'll find out it's where Hiccup goes to berserk. And, and you'll see, it's a good one. It starts with, as they all do, the prophecy of the king's lost things. Because Hiccup were beginning to realise that the prophecy might be important, that the king's lost things might be important, but we don't quite know why yet. So it says, join Hiccup on his quest, although he doesn't quite realise he's on one yet. The prophecy of the king's lost things. The dragon time is coming, and only a king can save you now. The king shall be the champion of champions. You shall know the king by the king's lost things. And these are all things that Hiccup accidentally seems to have been gathering without realising their importance. These are the lost things. A fang-free dragon. He's got that. Toothless. My second best sword, Endeavour. He got that in Pirate. My Roman shield, he got that in Her-Speak Dragonese. An arrow from the land that does not exist. The Heartstone, the key that opens all locks. The ticking thing. He has all those things. But he doesn't have the throne, the crown, and last and best of all the 10, the dragon jewel shall save all men. So in this book, we're going to begin to find out why he's going to need these lost things. How to break a dragon's heart. And it begins, like they all do, with Hiccup talking as an old man. Epilogue by Hiccup Friends has had the last of the great Viking heroes. History is a ghost story. My own childhood has passed into history, and the ghosts I find there are the ghosts of heroes and dragons and berserks and witches, because it has become fashionable not to believe in these things anymore. But I believe, for I was there. And just because you, dear reader, have never seen a dragon or a witch or a ghost, does not necessarily mean that they do not exist. This quest is the story of the most important moment, I said it was important, in my entire life so far. It was the first time I learnt that the names on the flat map of the archipelago, such as the Bay of the Broken Heart, were not just made-up fantastical names, but names that related to real people who had real flesh and blood lives, and the things that happened to them still haunted the place where I was growing up. That is what I mean by ghosts. So then it says, the lost throne of the Wild West. Oh, that was one of the things. Peering above the great grey remorseless ocean, poking defiantly out of the endless, ever-changing sea, is the broken back of an island like a humpback whale, and somewhere in the wind-tossed, storm-blown grasses where the wind bowls across the blasted heather and the trees are all blown into hoops, are the 2 stout stone stumps on which once stood the everlasting throne of the kings of the Wild West. Here sat Grimbeard the Ghastly, the last great king, looking out over the rooftops of his bustling Viking city, stroking his great sword, the Stormblade. And here, where the seagulls circle and the wolves gather pace for the hunt across the marches, was once a harbour for 100 ships that Grimbeard sent to the north, south, east and west, seizing plunder, treasure and slaves in jolly Viking fashion. Here he once stood, clenched his fist and shouted, I name this land tomorrow, for it shall last for evermore. And 1,000 men lifted up their spears and shouted their approval, while the dragons winked their ancient eyes, as if to say, we have heard all this before. Here he was betrayed. Grimbeard was betrayed by his own flesh and blood in the middle of a game of chess. Here is he spilt that blood, the blood of his own son, on the kingly marble. Here the flames licked the sky as the city went up like 1,000,000 candles. Here the bright clean sound of sword on sword. Here the harbour crammed berry red with corpses. And here the defeated warrior king looked back to see several lifetimes worth of dreams go up in smoke as his boat began to limp like a wounded wolf across the sea to the island of despair. And that was the end of the last king of the Wild West. The throne was lost, the chess pieces scattered across the ocean, the storm blade buried, the kingdom shattered into 100 warring tribes again, and Grimbeard sailed into the west, never to be seen again. But here was where it once all happened, here where the eagles soar over knotted rags of brambles, and the sea-field caves in the bleak black cliffs echo to the ache of no human voice. So you see, the story, that's all happened in the past. There's a past all of this. But this is now in Hiccup's present, when he was a young boy. Midsummer Storm. There are many storms in the barbaric archipelago, but this was the greatest storm in over 100 years. It came without warning at the height of midsummer. For 3 days it raged without stopping, howling like a god in pain, bowlowing over houses, tearing up trees, picking up ships and tossing them down into the depths of the ocean as if they were matches, caring nothing for the tiny human habitations clinging like ants to the barren island wildernesses, mowing them down as if they were nothing. A storm like this causes many things to be lost and many things to be found. Many a boat can be dragged down in the tempest, and many a strange object that everyone had forgotten about can be dragged up from the depths of the ocean and tossed up on one of the beaches, along with a whole heap of driftwood. This particular storm caused someone to be lost. Kamikaze, oh lovely Kamikaze, the tiny, intrepid, tangled-haired daughter of big-boobied Bertha, chief of the bog burglars, was out on the sea alone in her boat, the Stormy Petrel. Stormy Petrels are lovely birds, by the way, look them up. When the storm struck, even before the tempest was past, the bog burglars were out looking for her. And when the winds finally dropped and the tribes of the archipelago were waking up to the devastation of flattened cowsheds and walls and houses and upside-down trees, and were wearily getting down to the task of rebuilding their lives again, the bog burglars were already scouring the very edges of the archipelago in their black-sailed boats, shouting, "Kamikaze, Kamikaze, Kamikaze, where are you?" But answer came there none. And that's the archipelago after the storm. You see the island up there, and there they are calling, that's Hiccup calling there, "Kamikaze, Kamikaze at last." It's an exciting opener. I'll read you the first chapter tomorrow. See you then.